obviously is an attempt to clarify local control and to make sure that local control does have the authority to regulate within their jurisdictions. So the first part of Senate Bill 78 kind of clarifies that individuals acting in their individual capacities do have the right to do mining within their home. And so the first two lines are struck, which is lines 10A and B, and they're placed similar to on their own on page 3, sections F1 and 2. Now, digital asset mining in the home is limited to the confines of what your utilities can provide you based on your normal retail rate. So this is a hobby. This is something your personal computer is able to do if you so choose to do it. If you choose to buy a 2 or 3 in the confines of your home, that is a hobby, and that was the intent of the original language. I just cleaned it up to make sure it wasn't about a business, it was about home mining. If you want to operate a business out of your home with this and declare that, then you must follow local guidelines and local ordinances. But in order to just do it as a hobby, the intent was that you have that permission to do that. So local control. Additionally, on the second page, we've struck any ordinance concerning operations and safety and just put any ordinance, which means any digital asset mining may operate in the state if they comply with any ordinance. We've also struck any language regarding the enactment or adoption of any ordinance, policy, or action that limits the sound decibels generated from home or any other limits set for pollution generally. And we've also struck impose a different requirement for digital asset mining businesses other than the requirement for any other data center. And then we struck language, rezone an area with the intent or effect of discriminating against a digital asset mining business. Now, the original intent of Act 851 was for the current operators that have enjoyed operation in our state to be able to be treated like any other business and not capriciously discriminated against in the event somebody just did not like what they were doing. Now, obviously, that intent really plays out better in the cities than it does the counties. Once the bill passed, we knew that these facilities that were already being built in our counties and coming online need to be basically controlled. So 50 of our counties passed ordinances dealing with sound decibels with these facilities, and that was fine. That was perfectly within the law. But what the law did say was once it is enacted and these are up and running, you can't retroactively and capriciously remove them by a discriminating ordinance. So the counties that passed these ordinances had these facilities operating, but those ordinances were not restrictive enough. And so the notion to repeal the law would not, again, give these counties just carte blanche ability to do this unless they set up that planning regime or a zoning regime, in which our counties typically do not want to do. There's Benton County, Washington County, Crittenden County, I believe are 3 examples that do have a planning regime and could put these facilities in a functional box. The other counties have to do something more broad and more creative to attempt to regulate these. And frankly, several of our county judges said they don't want that responsibility. They want people to enjoy the county. However, quiet enjoyment is a right of property as well. And so giving back local control to make sure they can effectuate their own ordinances to control these facilities is the intent. The section 6 of the bill is really for those not section 6. Section 3, page 2, section 3 of the bill deals with noise. So the industry really knows what the noise is generated from, and that's obviously the noise of the servers and the noise of the fans. And so as these are both operating in the heat of the summer, or even in the winter, as we've seen up in Bono, noise is obviously less than what the ordinance says, but it's still quite debilitating if you're within a certain distance. So what we've done is what I've recommended we do as a state is to apply noise reduction techniques, including without limitations a few of these things, which is use liquid or submerged cooling. If you play a video of a liquid or submerged cool system, they basically generate no noise. The second option is to fully enclose the envelope of the facility, which means basically you're in a 4-sided roofed building. If we flip over into page 1 of the amendment to this bill, what I've done is I've clarified some exceptions, because you can have a container that has 4 sides and a roof, but one side of it is louvered with fans, and it generates a lot of noise. So what would that do? Would that qualify as a 4-sided enclosure? And the answer is no, not unless you go into Section C, which means, so basically what we're calling that is a fully enclosed envelope does not include utilizing a passively cooled pre-manufactured container without additionally enclosing the envelope. That's in B, to make sure we're not splitting hairs there. Section C says, hey, you can use that if you are 2,000 feet away from the nearest habitable structure or commercial building, or if you have an area industrial use or otherwise approved use, meaning a zoning system. So that kind of pushes that out to where the functional decibel level is 0 at that 2,000 feet, which really goes right into who has the ability to confer standing in that. If you're within 2,000 feet and they're not complying, then that person has standing to sue in circuit court to make sure they apply with the law. The next section deals with foreign ownership. I think Senator Urban has gone pretty well into detail at foreign ownership. It is 0. They've got 365 days to divest and to get in compliance with the law. So that is functionally what we're trying to do, is address local control, giving it fully back to them. Those that do not want to utilize local control, the state has some purview over it, ideally through regulations that Senator Urban's bill puts through, and then addresses foreign ownership. So with that, I am open for questions.
All right. Thanks, Senator Bryant. Before we go any further here, one of the questions I do have for for Senator Bryant and Senator Irvin is the intent to try to, adopt these amendments, and then, should there be the will of this committee to pass these bills out of here today, we do need to get those on the Senate floor in order for these amendments to be engrossed. However, because of the short timing of how we scheduled this meeting to present these bills, if there is a need to come back on Tuesday to hear more public testimony on these bills, would you all be willing, should these bills come out of this committee today, to re-refer these bills back to City, County, Local Committee in order to hear more public comment, if that is necessary or becomes clear?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to put that on the record and make sure that we're all understanding that members. I had conversations with Pro Tem Hester and other. We do need to get these amendments adopted, and in order to get them engrossed, we do need to get them out of the committee and onto the Senate floor. However, to make sure that we are allowing adequate time for public comment specifically. Just wanted to make sure that the bill sponsors were agreeable to that. Yes. If they need to come back to City, County, Local for additional.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, members, you've heard a presentation of the bill from Senator Bryant. Are there any questions from members? Senator McKee, you are recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Bryant, Senator Irvin, would you say that the prohibition on foreign ownership from those bad actor countries in certain ways mitigates the need for prohibiting location near military property?
I feel as though it does. And the way these systems functions, it's really targeted to a certain function of the blockchain network. Blockchain networks are used by our Fortune 500 companies to secure their transactions. They're just doing it. They're not looking for or solving for cryptocurrency. They're just keeping a ledger, which is on the same level of what these facilities are capable of.
And follow up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. I share the exact concerns, which is why I wanted to include that language in the legislative intent on cybersecurity because of what Senator Stubblefield pointed out.
Okay.
Yes.
Senator McKee, did you have another follow-up? You're good? Okay. All right, members. Senator Rice, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you. Either one of you, I think I've talked to you or asked you this question. Is there anything that you have heard that could be misconstrued or maybe used out of the intent beyond the digital asset mining business for noise levels? We have current commercial industries running at noise levels in the areas they're in. Is there anything in this that you've heard a concern with that could cause a problem to, that's outside of the digital mining asset?
I can speak to that, and I'll let him, because we worked so closely together on this all week, and there's so many people I want to thank for their hard work on this with us. and I'll get to that. But no, because we removed the decibel level in my original bill, because A, that's hard to regulate, and B, it is specific to this industry. But what we did do is we strengthened the language as it relates to noise in his legislation, because it's easier to regulate, to ensure that it's built properly to prevent that noise from ever reaching an egregious level.
And again, just from industries that we're not getting noise complaints from because of where they're zoned in now or where they're at. Right. Even if they were in a rural area, I didn't want to get them crossed up. Thank you.
Yes, Senator Rice, I have not heard of anything. This is housed inside a certain title that is for data centers. One area that we did strike was obviously comparing these to a traditional data center. That way we make sure we don't lose other operators that would like to enjoy our state's business community.
Thank you. Just wanted to get that public. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rice. All right. Senator Hammer, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you. Let me play devil's advocate for a minute on the home ownership side of things. I know the economics of it. You had spoken before about the economics not really being feasible for somebody to try to set up. But at what point or how is it defined when it transitions from being home ownership or home business to actually full blown that would fall under regulation? Where's the line?
I think for the intent of this, it is really based on nuisance. But the line as far as a business would be I believe it's in the original language where the consumption of power is a certain level. And so if you have a home, and if Entergy wanted to speak to this, homes typically have 400 amps. And so really, if you want to attach these systems to your home inside and consume, Entergy is really going to know if you're a high user. And then I believe that they have the ability to penalize even high users with additional fees or rates. But to me, the functional level of a business it goes up into the megawatt usage. That's where functionally you start having the noise and the nuisance issues. And so anywhere inside of a zone, you would have basically complaints to the local authorities, and they could effectuate police powers and begin that investigation. If you were out in the county, it'd come down to the 2,000-foot rule, and it had to be investigated.
Okay, so do you anticipate or do you see any roadblocks through the rulemaking process as the way this is written that something could be incorporated that would, there's got to be some sort of trigger mechanism? Because if I'm trying to look for an end around through the law, which is what people do, we pass laws and then they figure end arounds and we come back and fix it. We do what we do. But do you see in the rulemaking process, or have you thought through that maybe in the rulemaking process there could be something that could be a trigger to identify that? I mean, just because the utility company may see a high power usage and they may want to penalize them, would that necessarily stop somebody from moving to the next level?
I foresee it's a potential, because our idea for the rulemaking process would be to address energy uses, to make sure there is a rate agreement with the provider, make sure there is a water agreement for those facilities that do connect to our water supply or have wellheads, to make sure the ownership is sufficient, to make sure that data security or cybersecurity is addressed. So I think with the complaint process, there will be a mechanism for energy and environment to investigate those complaints, as well as local control having the full authority to also investigate and pass. They could pass their own provisions of what a business looks like to this issue,
which could be done through either the county or the municipality through zoning process. This property is subject to be
for sure through the city. Obviously, the counties that don't have planning or zoning would have a different challenge, but that's also the challenge of living in a rural community.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Senator Petty, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, I think what I heard you were saying, but I don't want to assume anything.